Welcome to Advancing Literacy Beyond the Classroom. Our goal is to provide space for families and caregivers as you aim to support the literacy learning that goes on outside of school, beyond the school day. We welcome all of you to join us as we aim to make learning fun and purposeful. We know that literacy learning is a big life thing and not just a school thing. And as family members and caregivers, we know your role is central to your kids' literacy development. You may have preschoolers with you, young children, kids, preteens, or young adults. We have suggestions that will support their literacy journey. So let's get started. I'm Emily Smith.
I'm Christine Holly.
And I'm Amanda Hartman. We are staff developers at Advancing Literacy at Teachers College in New York City. We are a center within the Teacher Education and Community Partnerships Division, providing professional development for school districts in the New York City metro area across the country and worldwide. This school year, we will be offering over 20 free workshops for families, caregivers, and educators. You can find our events and future workshops on our social media pages at TC Advancing Lit and our website, advancingliteracy.tc.columbia.edu.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Christine. We have a great topic today, decodable books. And I think it would be great if we could start off with a definition. Christine, how would you define or answer the question, what is a decodable book?
Well, thank you, Emily. That's a great question and important one to be discussing with your child's teachers and school. And let's talk briefly about what children are learning in early childhood that lays the foundation for reading. Well, phonics instruction teaches what we call the alphabetic principle, the understanding that letters represent sounds in spoken language. Mm-hmm. Decoding is the process of applying that knowledge, sounding out letters and blending them together to read unfamiliar words. And for this to be effective, phonics instruction needs to be explicit and systematic, meaning it moves in a clear, intentional sequence from simple patterns to more complex ones. But here's the key. Children need a place to practice those skills. That's where decodable books come in. A decodable book is specially designed to support early readers. It uses a controlled set of phonics patterns, meaning the words in the book are made up of the sound-letter combinations the child has already been taught. And this allows kids to practice blending sounds, decoding accurately, and building their confidence as readers. And it's important to note how decodable a book is depends entirely on what the reader knows. As their phonics knowledge grows, the range of texts they can decode grows with them.
And I think it's interesting. There are two big things in my mind. One is that what's decodable depends on the reader because it depends on their phonics knowledge and what they've been taught in focused instruction and in systematic instruction in phonics. So and then that's the second part is that it's really the decodable books are the books that kids get to practice their instruction.
What they're learning.
Yeah.
And they're designed that way.
That's right.
Like it's a controlled text so that the words are all to support that decoding process.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you. I think that's a good start for everybody to just have that definition in place. And I think maybe it would be helpful for us next to visualize this, especially for family members or caregivers who aren't classroom teachers and aren't familiar with this in the same way. What might this look like for a child who's in kindergarten or first grade who knows their letters and sounds?
Okay, so let's think about this. So a child who knows their letters and can already connect sounds to those letters, at this stage, they're often working on what we might call CVC words. That stands for consonant, vowel, consonant words. Simple words like cat, rug, mitt, mud, pig. They all follow that same pattern, consonant, short vowel, another consonant. So a truly decodable book at this stage would contain mostly these kinds of words, and that makes the book decodable for that reader. For example, there's a book that is on the screen here that you can see. It's called The Case of the Lost Pig, and the kids are looking for the pig. And this page says, I can see a fish swim and flip. But pink pig cannot swim and flip. You can see this first page has the word fish and swim and flip, all words that have a short I sound. So a child who knows short vowels can move through these sounds to decode flip, swim, and fish.
Well, and it also has some blends.
Yeah.
So it has the word flip and
Yeah.
swim.
Yeah.
So 4 phonemes or 4 letter
Yeah.
sounds are harder than 3.
Yeah.
And
And it has a digraph, the
And it has
SH at the end.
it has a digraph at the end of fish.
Yeah. Yep.
So kids who have learned things about short vowel sounds,
Yep.
blends, and digraphs, like that's going to be a good book to practice
Yep.
those phonics principles as well as decoding in across those sentences.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, so that's really helpful. And then, Amanda, I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about how this unfolds for readers in terms of over time. So if we're thinking about readers' development over time, like from kindergarten to first grade to second grade, what's the role of decodable text in that progression of development?
Well, first, I think it's important to remember it's not necessarily by grade, right? Like this will unfold differently for different types of readers and different kids. So there's not one way that it unfolds. But it is helpful to know and to ask your teachers, what is my child learning about phonics and decoding words in kindergarten, first grade, second grade? And you can go up the grades, right? Like it's not necessarily only a grade thing. And so your school and teacher will have a sequence of phonics that they are working on and that they are following, that they are teaching and assessing. So it's really nice to ask your teacher, what's my child working on? And what books or texts, they don't have to just be books, is my child reading at school? So that way, as kids gather up more and more features of phonics to tackle and decode words, then they can continue to read decodables that become more and more complex, that have more and more features to work on and apply their knowledge. So, as I'm still learning features of phonics, to have some controlled text that allow me to practice, that will be really important for especially beginning readers to be working on. And then as their knowledge grows and strengthens along with their fluency, then kids will be orchestrating more of that knowledge so that when their fluency rates start to improve and their word knowledge starts to improve, that their brains will spend less effort on the decoding, and then it becomes more seamless. They still are working on it, but it becomes less of an effort, and they can work more on understandings. So then you can start being in other kinds of more like what we call like trade books or even some early chapter books when you start to have that more under control. Mm-hmm. Sometimes kids are in some early chapter books and still in some decodables because there are particular features that they are still working on acquiring.
Right. Okay. Nice. So their books don't all have to be decodables. Depending on where they are, they might have some books that are like highly decodable and others that are a little more varied.
Right. So and all of that would depend on where you are on the continuum of learning phonics. So beginning readers, it's more the most important to be in those kinds of texts.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think that's super helpful for families and caregivers to consider. Yeah. And in these workshops, one of our goals is to make sure we're highlighting some key research in the field. And I think this is a good time for us to think about that. Christine, what are some of the things that you think are really important for people to know in terms of educational research when it comes to decodable text?
Well, one of the most important things to know is that early readers need lots and lots of practice. And so here's, I would say that practice can happen in two ways. One can be in context, like when a child is reading a decodable book that's carefully matched to their phonics that they've been taught, and also out of context, which can be just as valuable. That might look like reading individual words on index cards, practicing a list of words that follow the same pattern, and even noticing and reading words in the environment on signs, labels, menus, anything that contains words that match the phonics that they know. And the key is alignment. Practice is only effective when the words match what the child has already been taught. And there's a well-known quote from reading expert Wiley Blevins, and I think it sums it up nicely. He says, "A high proportion of the words in the earliest selections children read should conform to the phonics they've already been taught. Otherwise, they will not have enough opportunities to practice, extend, and refine their knowledge of letter-sound relationships." And that's really at the heart of it. I mean, kids, it's like they don't need just exposure. They need targeted, meaningful opportunities to apply what they're learning.
Yeah. I mean, he's such a great person to bring up because his research in phonics says it has to be out of context and in context. Yeah. So I love that it's like both places they need the work and practice.
Yeah, you need to practice in both scenarios.
Absolutely.
Which makes sense with what we think about with learning.
Because we often warm up with words out of context, and then they get the book to read in context.
I'm thinking too about some of the learning that we've done with Dr. Kay James, who's professor of neuroscience here at Teachers College. And she gives this regular reminder that I think is helpful for families and caregivers to remember too, or to be aware of. And that is that while our brains are wired for spoken language, so we learn to speak through exposure. If you have children in your lives and they're past the age of 3, you've generally seen that process unfold, hopefully. But we must be taught how to read. So reading instruction changes our brain structure and how they work. And I think one of the quotes I pulled for us to think about today is from Dr. James's work with our multilingual symposium at Teachers College in May of 2025, where she was speaking to us and said, language develops naturally with exposure during childhood. The human brain is primed for language development. However, no brain network is specifically evolved for reading, which means that for people to learn to read, they must be taught.
Such a good one.
And that's exactly what decodable texts are trying to do, is trying to help you wire your brain for reading. I love that. I mean, so I was thinking a lot about the importance of productive struggle, and thinking about how productive struggle is the way that our brains grow. We learn through some struggle, so not too hard and not too easy, like a nice little sweet spot. So we know that through some trial and error, getting some feedback in the moment, and working on saying each of those sounds and then blending them together is good work. Like, that doesn't have to sound perfect. It won't if you're a beginning reader, right? So this idea of productive struggle is really important for our kids. And we can watch to make sure that no one's too frustrated or sailing through too easily. Like, we can look at those things and then provide supports or other books if it feels in a way like too hard.
That goes back to sort of, I think, where we started in saying that what defines a decodable text depends on what's going to provide you with productive struggle if you're the learning reader. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, helpful there. Good to get a little framing on some of the different educational research that informs this. And I think the next one, I mean, this one, I'm going to reveal my age a little bit. I'm 54, and I remember in first grade having some Dick and Jane books that I did not find especially compelling. I think they were decodable for me, but I was super bored by them, so not too interesting to me. So I'm curious about this. Could we talk about what makes for a good decodable book? And I know that's subjective, but I think they're not all equal. And what should we look out for in decodable books?
Yeah, well, just to bring back some of the research, Anderson, Hebert, Scott, and Wilkinson named 3 criteria that I like to refer to here. One is comprehensible, that the book's understandable. Most words derive from kids' speaking and listening vocabularies. They'll understand the book. It's instructive, like we've been talking about. The majority of the words should contain sound spellings previously taught. And then I think this third one is so important, that it's engaging, that readers, they want to read it again and again. There's funny parts that they'll laugh about, or there's like surprising parts, or things that they can really think more about.
Yeah, I mean, I think the book industry is kind of slowly catching up to this, both for educational materials in the classroom, as well as what's available to families. In the commercial space. I mean, I know a lot of teachers were kind of like turned off because the books wouldn't make sense. And then they didn't really see the purpose of it, or they weren't very engaging, and then kids didn't really find reading enjoyable. And so I think that there are now some early decodables that have some cute storylines to them. I mean, they're short, but they're a little bit more enjoyable. There are ones that reflect more inclusive and diverse communities. And even some that are now nonfiction that help you build knowledge about the world. So I do think that there are lots of publishers now really looking at that for schools. And that some of those are even online. Like the one that you just shared, Christine, I know you love Little Blossoms.
Yeah.
And those are on Epic, which is a free resource for schools, kids, families. They get to see that these books are to learn from, to have fun with, that they have a little meaning, that there's some purpose to them, and that they can be readers too, right? Like this is their introduction to reading the words on the page. It's not their first book ever because you've been reading to them, but this is their first introduction, and we want it to be one that feels positive. And so I think that there are a lot more that do those 3 things that you're suggesting.
Yes.
Let's think about some recommendations of working with these books, and then we'll get to our book recommendations. So what advice would you give about book selection, reading with your children, asking questions? What are some things that you might do first?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm always thinking about access because, as you said, these are really educational materials more than they're books that you would find, especially in the library or the bookstore. You might find some, but I think the higher quality ones are probably more ones you're going to find in educational settings. And so I think one thing that we might think about the ways that we communicate with our teachers. We're all former classroom teachers, and we can think about and recommend for families and caregivers to be in close communication with your children's teachers.
Sure.
And to ask, what is my child reading decodable text at school? And could you send some of those decodable books home for more practice? Yeah. Sometimes teachers are hesitant to send things home because they have potentially limited resources. They need to use them in the classroom, and they're afraid they're going to get lost. And so, one thing is to just be thinking about access and how to help to make sure they don't get lost in your home and get back to school. But that could be something you're thinking about, is just to talk to your teacher and ask questions and ask if there's a way to have more access if they're not bringing them home from school already.
Absolutely. And it's helpful to ask about what students are learning in phonics. I mean, you could literally ask that question to your teachers, and then knowing this, you can work on word reading, and you can see how your child reads those types of words in their books, and reminding them to use all the sounds they know, so that they misread a word, or if they don't know it, you can of course give them the word and show it to them, but you can also know what phonics they know to nudge them to do that as well. I might add that thinking about what you do at home and what you don't do at home. It's first and foremost, your role at home isn't really to be the teacher. It's to be a partner, right? A support, someone who's encouraging and ready to assist. And we don't want to do the work for them, because, what really these young readers really need is space to try things and make mistakes and of course, build their confidence like we've talked about. I can give you an example from that book that we just looked at, where I can see a fish swim and flip. Let's say your child's reading this page and they come to the word flip and they pause, and maybe they're not sure what to say. Instead of just jumping in and saying the word for them, which it's so easy to do, we just want to tell it to them all the time. It's very simple. You can just say, hey, put your finger under the word. Let's say the sounds together. Let's slide through the sounds. F-L-I-P. Now put it together. Flip. Right. And so just that simple coaching, you're helping them. Basically, that kind of prompting keeps them active in the process and builds their confidence, especially when they figure it out with just a little support. Right. But I think that we want to avoid jumping right in, because, we want to give them that space. And
I appreciate that so much. I mean, it goes back to your productive struggle conversation, because if the kids don't have some space to work on it, then they're missing out on the learning. That's where the learning happens.
We're trying to build that confidence and grow independence. And, I just think it's so important. I just feel really, really strongly that it's just important to be warm and supportive and present with them, and let them know it's okay to struggle, right? And that figuring it out is the learning. And your encouragement means so much in that situation.
I think, Amanda, too, you were also just saying the importance of this is their first experience with their own reading. They're doing the reading, the decoding. And this is the beginning of a beautiful, an amazing lifelong thing. And so we don't want it to be that the first experiences are painful ones. They need to be warm and exciting, and, the confidence building. And
Yeah, I was working with a 5-year-old who was doing so much work of saying each of the sounds and blending them together, and saying each of the sounds and blending it together. And the teachers were like, should we stop her? And I was like, well, let's see. Is she frustrated? Is she getting it? Is she excited? Is she enthusiastic? Does she have momentum? And she was just rolling through it. And by the end, she even could tell us about what she read, which is not so easy to do when you're doing so much effort to work on that decoding work. And so, I think you have to really pay close attention to your child's energy. You know?
And I think when you just said pay close attention, you made me think how important it is after they do slide through the word flip, for example. We'll just keep with that example. Maybe say, oh, yeah, there's the fish flipping, or, the fish is flipping in the water.
That's
just bringing it back to, also what's actually happening on the page. And
They've just done a huge cognitive load. So you're sharing it.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
And let's not forget the importance of rereading.
Sure. It doesn't have to be the only time they read the book. Right. They can reread the book. And by rereading, you get multiple exposure and multiple times at decoding through those words. And when they become kind of mapped on your brain, you start to read them with more fluency and automaticity. So I often say, find somebody else at home to read to. Read to a pet, read to your grandma on the phone, read to
your stuffed animals.
Yeah, totally. We can share our reading with so many people. Rereading is so important, even through the grades, right? Through this, process, it supports reading, both through decoding and comprehension. And then talk about the books.
Yes.
Let's, just like what you said, oh my goodness, the fish is flipping out of the water. Where's that fish going? Having conversations about these books after you've read them a couple of times, at the end, we want to show that books have meaning.
That's right.
And we can notice things that we're learning, that make us laugh, that we have questions about, just as we might in any book.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, so now can we recommend some
Yes,
books? I'm
I
really
think
eager
so.
to recommend some books.
Let's go there.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have some of the decodables that we can think about here. We've got, you can see a collection here from different publishing companies.
Daffodil Hill Press was on there, and Half Pint and Sprouts. And you have to really look for the ones that are called decodables and to find which features of phonics do you want to focus on. That feels really important. And then we have some other ones that you can find in bookstores, like the Bob books are in bookstores. The Liza Charlesworth books are also in bookstores. You might ask your school which ones they have. If anyone's in need, you could give them some recommendations of some titles for you.
Okay, and then we also want to think about not just decodable text, but we also want to think about book recommendations. We've been talking about this. These are about decoding. These are about working on the phonics and applying that phonics in context. And we also want to always be talking about how whenever we're reading, we're talking to kids about how we comprehend the text and make meaning and find the funny parts and the joyful parts. And so we do want to also close out with some picture book recommendations. So I think, Amanda, were you going to start us off?
I'll start us off because we have 3 recommendations of some fiction books that we all enjoy. I'm picking The Day the Books Disappeared. I think this is by Johanna Ho. And I love this book so much. It's brand new out, and it's all about this little boy who reads about airplanes and loves them. And his friend is reading about tomatoes, and he's not so interested in tomatoes. And he's kind of like, I don't really like tomatoes. And then the book disappears. And he does this with all of his friends. And then all the books start to disappear. And then he's like so upset because his book disappeared and his friend's book about tomatoes disappeared. And she's like, I love that book because it reminded me of my grandmother. And when I read the book, I think about my grandmother. And he just is like, oh my goodness, this is terrible. And suddenly the book reappears. And so it's just a really beautiful book. I mean, especially, with the Read Band books and that campaign is coming up. And just to think of the importance of books and availability of knowledge for all children just felt really important. And this is just such a beautiful way to bring that to kids. Read the books that you love. Do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. There should be books for everyone.
Great. Well, that sounds wonderful. And I'll share a new favorite of mine, Ruthie Rose's Big Idea. And it's just a fun, playful, uplifting, positive book that really celebrates poetry. It's by John Shu, and it's written in a very fun, rhythmic, poetic, sing-songy way. And it's a reminder of really the joy and inspiration of sharing ideas. Like, she has an idea and she takes it through the school, and one person helps her, another person helps her, and by the end she's sort of hosting a little poetry reading. And it's
beautiful.
Just fun with this idea that you can pursue your ideas at any age.
Beautiful.
So a big idea in a fun, playful book.
Beautiful. Another picture book I love is Plantanos Our Love, and this is written by Alyssa Reynoso Morris and illustrated by Mariah Rahman. And it's a beautiful picture book about love and family and the food and the way that we come together. We want picture books where we can read and reread them that feel like old favorites, and also mirror what we experience with our own families.
That's
and
right.
I think that's part of what happens here. Many families and caregivers will respond to that, and the kids will too.
Yeah, I love it because it brings that intergenerational family and all of your history that you passing down recipes. And I love that book too.
Nice.
Yeah, it encourages more storytelling where you can just be,
Yeah.
talking about your own families and what your traditions are and how that plays out.
I love that.
That's the beauty of reading books together at home, right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Some
Yep.
nonfiction.
We love nonfiction too.
I know there's so many great nonfiction books out there, but I decided to choose Little Rebels by Juji Morales. I just love her books and illustrations. She's both the writer, the author, and the illustrator. And I just love it for everything that Juji is. And this book really focuses on community care and how we can really be there for one another. And so it's a little bit of a list book about these friends. And they talk all about how they can help and support one another and community, which I just think is beautiful and really important to talk about.
Beautiful. Well, yours is a list style. I chose a Q&A style. So mine is Why Do Elephants Have Big Ears by Steve Jenkins and Robin Page. And I'm just a big fan of Q&A books. It's kids love to like, ooh, that's a cool question. What's the answer? And often you turn the page and you find out, you know, and it's often the answer is surprising.
Well, and I'm such a big Steve Jenkins fan. His books are
so engaging.
And the illustrations and facts are so interesting to pore over. It's such a good choice.
Absolutely. I think whenever we're doing these book recommendations, we're really thinking about the authorship too. So when you get one book by an author and you love it, then you're going to go to others.
That's right.
And I chose How to Bird by Rasha Hamid. And this one, it's a how-to. So you've got a Q&A and I've got a how-to. But it literally is a how-to, like how to become a birder. And what I love about this is that it really can be a guide for people and everybody can do it. All you have to do is go outside. So you can find birds no matter where you live, and you can go outside, and it really gives families, a sort of, this is immediate application of the reading that we're doing, and let's go do it, and gives you something to talk about when you're walking, and then to come back and reread and have more conversations about what you noticed and add on to it from your own experiences.
I mean, this is one of my favorites. I just love this book, and the photographs are fun, and you literally could go do it right now.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go, bird.
Okay. Well, thanks, Emily and Christine, for this conversation. I think it's so helpful to understand how and where decodable books are supportive for readers and the ways to make use of them to support beginning readers. We want decodable books and more complex texts that will engage kids, that boost their vocabulary and support their knowledge of the world. Creating habits for reading aloud and talking about books are just really important. So thank you all for joining us today at Advancing Literacy Beyond the Classroom. We hope that this continues to spark curiosity, conversations outside the classroom with your kids, and supports the growth and enjoyment that you have together around literacy. Remember, literacy isn't just about the books they read in school. It's about the stories we share, the world we explore, and the conversations that we have. If you are interested in bringing professional development to your families, schools, or districts, please email us, and we hope you join us again. Keep advancing literacy, one word, one book, and one conversation at a time. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Amanda.
You.
Thanks, Christine.
Happy reading.
Yeah, thank you.